because this is a conversation around subsidies to the film industry, and David Seymour not understanding it. Last week I had a bit of a revelation, maybe the week before. When people call you a grifter, what they're doing on some level is they're going, well, you're going to take the money and grift because I would. So what they're actually doing is they're telling you about their standard, so they're going, oh, you guys are just grifting. You're only, it's like, because most people, even people we disagree with, wouldn't just change their position based on finances. Although we could talk a bit about Duncan Garner's numbers at the moment, maybe for another night. Most people wouldn't do that. But when you get called a grifter by someone, I think it's because they go, well, of course you change your position for money, the person making the accusation. So it says more about them than what they're attacking. This is what happens here with Mr. Seymour, not the grift, but why he thinks politicians give subsidies to film for making films. Let's have a listen to the first part of this clip.
There's two things I know about this. Number one is that he's right about something.
He's talking about James Cameron, by the way, the he's.
Every other country gives these subsidies, and if New Zealand doesn't, we lose the industry. And on balance, we're probably getting more back from having it than if we didn't.
So just pause for a second. Okay. So we're spending $1 and we're getting back more than $1. And if we don't spend the $1, they'll go somewhere else. So it is a profit-making machine that will go elsewhere if we don't provide the subsidies. Seymour's just said that's how it works. So this is a profitable venture for the New Zealand taxpayer and for the government. Just remember that, right? So this works.
He's half right, but I just make one point about that. The thing about movie stars and filmmakers is that they're kind of cool and often good looking and charismatic on average. Then there are politicians who, on average, are not usually those things.
Well, that's true. We give baby his bottle. Politicians aren't cool.
And in every country, there's politicians who think if they give a subsidy to the film industry, they might get to be on the red carpet and meet an actor or an actress or something.
What?
And it's kind of just a bit cringe because there's no other industry. I mean, you don't see this for, the bulldozer industry, every government giving a subsidy to that so they can have a bulldozer industry. The only reason...
Well, should we talk about things like, write-offs to business and stuff? It's kind of doing that. I'm just going to get to the end of this. It's only got 15 seconds.
And that this industry is different is that politicians swoon over them, and I just find that a bit cringy. Now, even James Shaw used to say this. He basically agrees with me. Yep, we've got to do it because every other government does it, but it would be better if we didn't.
Okay. So, lots of things. The first is David Seymour thinks the reason, remember, this is a profitable venture. The New Zealand government spends $1 and they get more than $1 back. But David Seymour thinks the reason that the government gives subsidies to these film companies is so that these politicians can go on the red carpet. If you follow through on what I said before I started playing that about people revealing their own intentions, you have to wonder how much does David Seymour want to go on a red carpet? Because there is no politician anywhere that I've ever met or heard from that would go, yeah, we'll give this film $300 million, but only if I get invited to the opening night. Doesn't happen. So therefore, I think that's probably David Seymour telling more on himself than not. Second point, yes, we don't do the same sort of things for a bulldozer company, possibly because a bulldozer company doesn't bring into the country over $3 billion per annum. However, if you look at things like tax breaks and write-offs and et cetera, and getting back your GST, the government kind of does still do that on some level to the bulldozer company. It might not be a grant, but money goes out of the government coffers back to the bulldozer company, which is sort of the same thing, Chewie. That's part one. I've got part two coming up for you in a sec.
I just want to acknowledge one thing here. You know what's cringe, David Seymour? It's you, David. You're mad cringe. Look, I think this shows something that you see quite a lot from David Seymour. He desperately wants to be seen as cool, hip, and relatable. Yeah, there's none of those things.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be, David. You could just be competent. You're not that either. His lack of understanding of how the film and media industry works is spectacular. There is an argument of do we need to play the game that everybody else is playing to attract this? I think in our case, when you look at our experiences, yes, there's an argument. It seems that the answer is actually it's kind of worth it. The people that upskill themselves through their productions, that make the contacts that they do from working on these productions and go on to build their reputations and careers and go on throughout that global industry, that evidence is very clear.
Well,
look at the amount of work.
No, Mr. Seymour's going to disagree with you. Apparently, this does nothing for the New Zealand acting scene. We're going to get to that in a second.
Yes.
I just want to stop one more time and remember, David Seymour started this conversation by going, I paraphrase, but by going, the government spends $1 and they get more than $1 back. Okay, so we've finished this conversation. What you're saying, it's a good investment. So we can have $300 million here that we give to companies X, and we get $500 million back in GST, or we can not have that $200 million in our coffers. That's the end of that conversation, David. You guys who are the competent ones on the right, you guys who know how to do business. A business works really well when you spend $1 and you get more than $1 back, as you've already acknowledged in this conversation. But I do want to get onto
the example that he's using. The return is actually $800 million.
Well, we're going to show you all the numbers in a second because I had to go there.
Cool.
This is the second part of the conversation where he basically goes, this does nothing for New Zealand actors. Please, bitch, please.
The second point I'd make is that there's a difference between servicing an industry and having an industry. And when I talk to people in the New Zealand film industry, they say things like,
talk to people. I mean, those cool people that you want to be near and get on the red carpet with. When you talk to them, Mr. Seymour, really? I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, okay.
Who are you?
So a couple of $100 million a year, make it $3 billion of tax breaks in the last 20 years. And
remember, he's already said, and the government get back more than $3 billion. He's already said it.
The New Zealand actors, actresses, producers, directors, the people that have actually made it to the top globally, who are now at American studio level. And the truth is that for the most part, what we've done is been the grips and the carpenters building the sets. Sure, we're a workshop, pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
The people.
There's one example. Those little guys kind of do their thing.
Pretty impressive.
No,
Pretty impressive.
Those
the
guys.
World's premier VFX house. They win Oscars.
They're doing all right.
There's no one even close to the work that they're doing. Oh, they're pretty
guys.
good. Downplay it a bit.
All right. Here we go. Keep going.
Really made it. Like our friend Mr. Waititi, who's a real hero for the New Zealand film industry, he made it on his own talent, nothing to do with these government subsidies.
Really?
So I just make the point that, so we're kind of in a bind because other countries do it. Be better if we didn't. And meanwhile, we've served his interests well, and we've been a good service industry for his films. But where is the...
And it's made the country money. We've given $1 and got more than $1 back. Forget that, but Mr. Seymour.
The New Zealand film industry that's been built, that's actually going up the value chain and putting Kiwis front and center. It's not happening.
Okay. So, Chewie, apparently we're getting no New Zealand actors, making it in Hollywood, getting involved in the American
list of nobodies.
What, you mean like Cliff Curtis and Russell Crowe and Carl Urban and Melanie Linsky and Timothy Morris and Taika Waititi and Lucy Lawless and Jermaine Clement and Sam Neill, Anna Paquin, there's a few Oscar winners in there, Rose McIver, Rhys Darby. Should we go on? Oh, there's a little name Peter Jackson there, Keisha Castle Hughes, Oscar and stuff, Brett McKenzie, Oscar. Just this little rouser of no-hopers that have done nothing in Hollywood ever, who most of them got their start in New Zealand. But, should I keep scrolling down? It goes quite a long way, this list of people and more. And the other thing, as you've said, Chewie, not what's not on there. When they talk about, it's a grip. It's not the important guys. I know, personal experience and from speaking to people who make these kinds of films, is New Zealand on set behind the scenes talent is sought after by the world. One person gave me an example once, and it may not be a good example, but I'll tell you why one of the international world like our workers, our filmmakers, and our actors and actresses. And it's because Kiwis will do anything at any stage and make it work. The example that I've spoken to an American director for is like the guy who's doing the lighting refuses to touch the cables for the sound because it's a different union. Whereas we have this philosophy in New Zealand where it's number 8 wire 4x2. We get in there and we do it, everything, and they love it. And our behind the scene people are sought after the world over. And the guys that started with some of those subsidies, guys that were in like Lord of the Rings and behind the scenes, are some of the most sought after in the world for what they do. Point number 1. Point number 2, Chewie. So the New Zealand film industry in 2017 brought in $3.5 billion to the New Zealand economy. $3.5 billion to the New Zealand. It employs 14,000 people. David Seymour is wanting to get rid of the subsidies that pay for a bunch of the groups and companies that employ these people and bring this money in, even though those subsidies, when you spend $1, the country gets back more than $1. And there's one more thing. I had to do this bit as well. We love Taika Waititi, most of us. He is being set up by David Seymour as the neoliberalist's wet dream. He never got help. He never want one of these subsidies. So of these shows, movies, Eagle versus Shark, Boy, What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People, that got his start. Out of interest, Chewie, do you think how many of them were maybe involved with the New Zealand Film Commission? You know, that government entity that gives grants.
That would be all of them, Pat.
Yeah. So Mr. Seymour, whilst they might not have given a subsidy like has been given to the Avatar, there's this big pot of money that the government's got to decide about those subsidies, but it's the same pot of money that gives money to the New Zealand Film Commission that gives it to people like Taika Waititi so he can make his Academy Award nominated short that got him onto the screen, that got him onto the stage. Eagle versus Shark, Boy, What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People. So Taika Waititi is not someone who's just gone, I'm going to do this all on my own. Gifted man. I'm not saying anyone owes him anything, but we have a system in New Zealand where government money is involved in all New Zealand-made art, other than podcasts. So I don't know. You know, Muldoon said that thing once when people were going to leave New Zealand, it'll make the go to Australia, it'll make the IQs in both countries higher. I kind of feel like if we can move on from Seymour and Luxon, the IQ of the whole country will increase. If we can lose them from their screens, from our screens, everyone will be instantly a bit smarter. Chewie.
I just want to make the point. I want to make a couple of points. This might surprise you. I think what we're really seeing here is the frustrated actor in David Seymour coming in. Now, remember, he was in that Edmund Hillary docu-movie. I don't know if you knew that. Did that come up on the show? I think that's how I learned about it. He's got an acting credit. If you look up David Seymour on IMDb, he was actually in a movie as the young Edmund Hillary.
Okay.
So yeah, his career didn't go down that direction, and I think he's jealous. I was absolutely going to bring up the point that Taika Waititi was definitely a recipient of the Film Commission's attention, which is great. And libertarians, or supposed libertarians, small government. No, that's the wrong footage. That's the wrong footage.
There'll be public money in this. NZ on air funding, public money. David Seymour, beneficiary of it.
But the guys that like ACT and like what they're saying, people like the Taxpayers Union and that sort of thing, they don't like the New Zealand Film Commission. They don't like public money going to things like art. Despite, well, it depends on the type of art. If it's too woke, if it's too ethnic, we don't like the money. But no one ever questions money going to the New Zealand Ballet or the Symphony Orchestra, which doesn't bring in a lot of money to the country. I'm not going to argue the point that those things have no value, because that's an insane point of view. But you cannot look at the public money that goes to our film industry and saying we're getting a poor return on investment. We're still riding the coattails of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like it's one of our core industries. And Seymour does not understand the snowball effect of this. We now have one of the world's greatest directors living here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's living here because of its access to weather, its access to talent, and the fact it's a nice place to live.
Yeah.
Now, I might personally have the opinion that James Cameron should just sit back and enjoy living here and stop trying to fuck with Wellington. But that's a separate issue. But I think for David Seymour to wade into this, woefully show his entire ass, and the fact that he does not understand this industry, he, as you pointed out a couple of times, acknowledges that it gets a good return on investment.
Yeah.
It then somehow tries to pivot into saying that that's not good. It's weird. He's weird, and this whole thing is weird.